the next Republican whip. Senator Barrasso, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be back. What you saw there really was an earthquake election, the biggest comeback politically in the history of our country. You know, they used to call Bill Clinton the comeback kid. Donald Trump is the comeback king. He has come back from 2 impeachments, from being dragged through the courts, from getting shot. And he won with over 300 electoral votes, a majority of the people winning all these demographic areas. And, you know, he brought us 4 new Republican senators. We now have 53 Republican senators. What that proves is America, the people of this country voted. They want to get this country back on track.
And we should note NBC News still hasn't called Arizona or Pennsylvania. But let's talk about the earthquake, because Republicans do control the Senate, Senator. So talk to me about how you see this. How do you think, and what do you think the Senate Republican mandate is?
Well, the mandate are the 2 things that people cared the most about, which is the high costs and the open border. And those are the things we're going to start working on immediately. We've been working with the transition team on those things. Now, there are some things that the president can do as soon as he takes office in terms of making some U-turns on these bad policies of the current administration, in terms of unleashing American energy, in terms of the policies with the border, reversing so many of these executive orders that were put in place 4 years ago. I expect to see the president put back in place the Remain in Mexico policy, stop this catch and release policy. And the Senate also wants to work very quickly, actually before the inauguration, on making sure the president's cabinet is in place. We're going to have hearings and votes so that on day 1, January 20th, when the president takes over, he's going to have as much of the cabinet in place as we can get. And he met huge resistance in 2016 and when he was inaugurated in 2017 with getting his cabinet in place. What I'm hoping is that as a result of this huge landslide victory, that we get a little more cooperation from the Democrats in helping President Trump get that cabinet in place for day 1.
Well, Senator, let's talk about some of those priorities that you mapped out. And let's talk about the border. I had the opportunity to talk to President-elect Trump this week about his win. He said at the top of the list, securing the border. I asked him for details. What's the price tag? He said, quote, "It's not a question of a price tag. We have no choice. There is no price tag." Ultimately, Congress will have to decide whether to give President-elect Trump a blank check. Do you agree that there is no price tag for Donald Trump's mass deportation plan?
Well, I agree there's no price tag on protecting the safety and security of our country and our citizens. President Trump is going to enforce the law, and we haven't had that over the last 4 years. There are over 10 million illegal immigrants in this country right now, and we're talking about people who are from criminal cartels, drug dealers, people on the terrorist watch list. These are people who are here in this country who have been murdering, raping, poisoning our citizens. And what the president said is he wants to prioritize and go after those people first, to deport those individuals. But Kristen, if you take a look, and you didn't get through this with the poll numbers, the number of people that support deporting these individuals, it is a supermajority of Americans. And I believe it had a lot to do with the president's success, his overwhelming success at the polls last Tuesday.
Yeah, and worth noting, not all 10 million are criminals. But let me just drill down with you, because by some estimates, that mass deportation plan could cost as much as $88 billion a year just to deport 1 million people. Senator, would you approve of a package that big, which would undoubtedly add to the national debt?
I agree with the president where we need to start. We need to start with the people who are felons, who have been left in this country, people who are on the terrorist watch list, people who have been convicted in other countries of murder and rape, people who are committing crimes in this country. That's the place to start, and that's where President Trump is about to start.
All right, let's talk about President-elect Trump's other big priorities, taxes. He's promised a lot of tax cuts. We have a list of some of them here. Let's take a look. Extending the 2017 tax cuts, further slashing the corporate rate, lifting the cap on deductions for state and local taxes, eliminating taxes on tips, overtime and Social Security benefits, and so on. The estimated price of this to the tune of $9 trillion. Do you believe that President-elect Trump will be able to deliver on all of those tax cuts, Senator?
Well, we've been working with a transition team, and I will tell you, in the hopes that we took the presidency, the House, and the Senate, members of the Senate have been meeting. I'm on the Finance Committee. Excuse me. We have been meeting through the summer and the fall in terms of saying, what can we do? How can we make sure we can continue these tax cuts from 2017 and extend them and make them permanent? What sort of things can we claw back from some of the excessive spending that the Democrats have done in terms of money that's going out or hasn't gone out yet? So we've been working on this all the way through, and we're going to continue to do that. Now, first, as you know, this is something we would do through reconciliation, so we have to win the House to make it happen and pass a budget. But we've been working with Lindsey Graham. He'll be chairman of the Budget Committee in the Senate to make sure we can accomplish as much as we possibly can to give the tax relief that the American people deserve, need, and we know that it was all this massive spending by the last administration that gave us this inflation that hurt the country so much.
Okay, so let me ask you that, because, again, the estimate is all those tax cuts could cost about $9 trillion and could add that much to the national debt. Would you approve that, $9 trillion?
What we know is when we cut taxes last time, the amount of money coming into the Treasury actually went up. It stimulated the economy. Less burden on businesses, less burden on families and individuals. What we also know is that government spending went up more. Our problem is not that we're taxed too little, it's that as a nation, we spend too much. The government is too big. We spend too much.
But, Senator,
and I think that's a message coming out of this election.
Yeah. Just to be clear, though, so you're saying, yes, you are okay adding to the national debt, just to be very clear.
What I'm saying is we have to take a look at the spending. That's the problem. When we cut taxes in 2017, revenue, money coming into the Treasury actually went up, but we ended up spending more than we brought in. So that's the problem. It's not that we're taxed too little. It's we continue to spend too much. The government is too big. It does too much. And we need to take a look at what we can do to make sure the American people have what they need.
Senator, you said earlier in this interview that you're determined to move quickly to confirm President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. You are, of course, a doctor. You're a believer in vaccines. How would you feel about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's, of course, an outspoken vaccine skeptic, having a role in health care in Donald Trump's administration? Would you support that?
Well, since President Trump hasn't actually made any nominations yet along those lines, I'm not going to comment on any one individual. What I will tell you is that I expect the president to make bold decisions. He has to come up with actually 1,200 different appointees who get confirmed by the United States Senate. The Senate will be ready to look at every nominee that he makes. But he's made one decision already, and that's putting Susie Wiles in as the chief of staff. That's a historic decision as well. She is the first woman chief of staff of the White House in history. President Trump has done that. She's terrific. And I can tell you, there are lots and lots of very qualified individuals who are going to be considered for cabinet posts and other posts in government. And the Senate is ready to take a look at each and every one of them. But I'm not going to comment on any one specific potential nominee this morning.
All right, we're almost out of time, but obviously one of the biggest cabinet positions, Attorney General. We all saw the tension between President Trump and his Attorney General during his first administration. Do you think it's important to preserve the independence that's traditionally existed between the White House and the Justice Department, Senator?
Well, I think what John Kennedy appointed his little brother Bobby as Attorney General. The president gets to choose who he wants. We'll have hearings on whoever the president appoints as the Attorney General of the United States. And I'm looking forward to those discussions and those hearings. And I'm looking forward to moving quickly with the majority we have in the Senate to get the president's cabinet in place so he can hit the ground running come January 20th.
All right. And of course, there is a leadership race this week in the Senate. So we'll be watching that closely. Great to have your voice and your perspective on this Sunday. Senator Barrasso, thank you so much.